If you clicked on this video, chances are that you're in your 20s, still living at home, and feeling kind of stuck. Not a kid anymore, but then again, not really an adult yet either. Maybe the pandemic threw things off for you, or maybe you're still just figuring out what you want to do with yourself in this world. But whatever your particular circumstances, you might be feeling some shame or guilt, or an uncomfortable sense that you're falling behind. In this video, we'll talk about how those feelings can mess with your progress, and how to start moving forward with a bit more ease and self-kindness. This is Chris. Chris is 24, and he's been living with his parents and working at crappy jobs since he left college. Chris's life is boring, as he mostly just hangs out at home when he isn't at his crappy job. But to make it worse, he can see the disappointment and frustration in his parents' eyes every time he talks to them. His parents are worried, and they're getting pissed. So Chris tries to avoid them if he can. Chris knows it is well past time for him to grow up, but he just can't seem to get it together. And with every passing week, he feels more like a failure. When people ask Chris what he has been up to, he doesn't even know what to say. So Chris spends a lot of time at home these days just playing video games. Welcome to the Lost in Place workshop, where we talk about issues relevant to people who are struggling on the road to adult independence. If you have lost your way or gotten stuck somehow on the road to adulting, you, like our boy Chris, can be living under a cloud of shame or guilt that just makes everything worse. When people struggle with growing up, they want to be treated like adults, but of course they aren't living like adults. It's obvious to everyone who knows them, but they avoid talking about it, and they sure as hell don't like it when people try to help. It can go on for years, and it just sucks. Not just for people like Chris, but for everyone involved. If you feel a bit like Chris, we invite you to listen up and consider if feelings of shame, guilt, or embarrassment might be causing you to do some things that really aren't helpful for you. And we will give you some simple suggestions to help you manage those feelings more effectively. Lots of young people are having challenges transitioning from being what one might call adult children to being independent adults. When a young person is off track to such an extent that they're just drifting along day to day without much effort or direction, we call that lost in place. Let's start by taking a look at some things that could be problems for someone like you. It would be really unusual that a young person who's struggling would have only one of these challenges. It's fair to guess that a person who's lost in place on the road to adulthood is probably troubled by a handful of these things. But let's be clear, Chris isn't a failure or a loser or anything like that. Chris is no more or less perfect than the rest of us out here on the road of life. In the moment, though, these struggles, maybe a combination of things, have really knocked him off track. Chris has a fear of responsibility and also a fear of failure. He struggles with decision-making, and he doesn't know what he wants to do with himself. All of this is giving him anxiety, and he smokes a lot of weed. So while it may not look like it from the outside, Chris has some important things to sort out. But he's not talking to anyone about these things. He just has pieces of these problems swirling around in his head, his soul, and his life all the time. He probably can't even put words to it all. Chris is still living at home, dependent on his parents in every way, and he's not going anywhere at the moment. And guess what? That's not a secret. People who know him and know his family are totally aware of it. And Chris isn't an idiot. He knows people know, and he knows that his problems are actually getting a bit worse, not better as time passes. So what are they saying about him, he wonders? What do people think of him? As Chris has his struggles and he hears, or fears, what people are saying, it's sadly reasonable that feelings of shame and guilt would get added to his list of challenges. Hopelessness, self-loathing, and embarrassment can set in as well. Chris imagines the things people might whisper about a young person who is living like a still dependent adult child who's going nowhere. None of these characterizations would be accurate, and they sure as hell wouldn't be helpful. But people do talk, and Chris knows it. Even the very possibility of gossipy chatter can get into his head. So here is where we see Chris's problems compounding with feelings and fears about what people might be saying. But Chris's problems multiply if those feelings cause him to take on some new and seriously unhelpful behaviors. It's not unusual that someone like Chris might do things to protect themselves from the embarrassment or minimize the shame. New and frankly problematic behaviors can manifest. Things like avoidance, excuse-making, disinterest, blaming others, anger, bitterness, and lying. But wait, Chris's real challenges are fear of failure, lack of direction, decision-making, and weed. How did we get to avoidance, excuse-making, disinterest, blaming others, anger, bitterness, and lying? This is a bad dynamic, and it can become like a trap, as Chris's feelings of shame and guilt result in behaviors that add to his struggles and make it really hard for anyone to help him. Other people are experiencing Chris acting like a messed up asshole, and that really doesn't help his cause. Tensions with parents are a prime example of how shame and guilt feelings can make hard situations even worse. Chris hates living with his parents because he can feel them watching and judging him all the time. Whenever they make a suggestion or ask a leading question, they just piss him off. He has nothing to say that would satisfy them, and pretty soon they're fighting again. The shame and guilt feelings impact more broadly, though, as Chris tries to avoid talking to other people who would have questions or, God forbid, suggestions for him. He hates family gatherings because they include all kinds of awkward conversations. Here Chris is at a family party, wanting to get the hell out of there, and he dreads the possibility that his Uncle Jim will talk to him. Uncle Jim grabs a cookie, of course, and heads over to where Chris has been sitting, trying to avoid making eye contact. "Hey, Chris, what you been up to?" says Uncle Jim. What would Chris say? Should he put on a happy face and make up some lies? No way he could admit to Uncle Jim that right now his life is pretty much crap. Oh man, he hates this. Uncle Jim is actually a good guy, and he was just being friendly. But for Chris, right now, this is a terribly hard situation. It's like he's being put on the spot or getting called out. Does all this sound familiar to you? If so, what should you do? If your life is stuck in an embarrassing rut and you're wrestling with feelings of shame or guilt, I recommend that you step back from the drama and try to sort out what's really going on with you. Try to identify and find specific words for the things that are difficult for you. Maybe you've already done work like this, but maybe you haven't. Sorting these things takes reflection and time and some serious internal honesty, but it's worth the effort. If you're working with a therapist or an advisor, these are great things to talk about. But if you're not working with someone, other approaches might help you to get there. Some people do meditation, some do journaling. Maybe you're lucky enough to have a close friend you can talk to with real honesty. And while it might sound silly, some people benefit from talking things through with their dog or their cat. My personal experience is that dogs are much better listeners than cats. But try to identify in specific words the things that are challenges for you. Then think about your behaviors and maybe some unhelpful things you've been doing because you're feeling shame, guilt, or embarrassment. Use real words to describe your unhelpful behaviors as well. And practice talking about it, finding words that are honest and yet okay for you to say. Get experience with how talking about these things, verbalizing them, helps you to see them and to think more clearly. The next step is to consider letting your guard down just a bit and engaging in simple, constructive conversations. Maybe starting with your parents or other adults in your life. If people can better understand things, they can be more helpful to you, or they can at least stop doing things that aren't helpful. Whether you want to talk to your parents or not, consider sharing the truth about your situation with people who care about you. It will likely be weird and hard when you get started, but stick with it. As you learn to speak your truth with simple honesty, the feelings of shame and guilt will ease up a lot, and you'll start to make more progress in working on the things that have been really holding you back. Here's an important perspective that might be helpful to you. Everyone you know and everyone you will ever meet has had serious personal struggles at one time or another, or they love someone who has. So start by sharing your truth, even if your voice shakes. You don't need to have it all figured out, just begin there. Something good might find you. Gently lay down the shame, the guilt, and the habits that have only weighed you down. Face what's in front of you with honesty, compassion, and the quiet courage that's already inside you. And when you can, let kind people in. Let them remind you that you were never meant to carry it all alone. This Lost in Place workshop episode was developed, written, and narrated by Marty O'Toole. It was designed, illustrated, and produced by the artist Bardo Curry. Our channel manager and program director is Mackenzie Cush. If you like this content, please give it a thumbs up. If you know someone who might benefit from watching this, take just a second to share it with them. And please leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments below, and let us know if there are topics you would like for us to address in future videos. And if you haven't already, be sure to click the subscribe button so you'll know right away when the next Lost in Place workshop presentation drops. Thanks.